Hello, everyone. This is a late night edition of Sree's COVID-19 call, my daily global conversation about different aspects of the COVID-19 crisis. It's 10:45 p.m. here in New York City. That means it's early morning in India, and we're going to go to India for a conversation about an India update to learn what's happening there in the country. And we're going to be talking to TP Sreenivasan, retired ambassador of India, author, television host, and my dad. So you're going to learn all about the world of international affairs, as well as what's happening in India. He's going to be joining us live from the state of Kerala in India. So please tag your friends, please hit share so that people around the world can join us. This is episode number 48 of the show. That means I've been on lockdown in New York for 48 straight days. As you also saw on the screen, this is brought to you in partnership with Scroll.in, one of India's leading news, culture, and analysis websites. Please check out Scroll.in. We're live right now on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on LinkedIn. And with those, we want to connect to the world. So please hit share right now. Please hit retweet and get this out into the world. You'll get a chance to ask questions of Ambassador Sreenivasan and also to share your comments about what's happening globally. First, we need to pay some bills, so we want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Muckrack Academy, introducing Muckrack's Fundamentals of Media Relations, a free, on-demand, 2-hour course and certification. Enroll today. There's a URL right on the screen, mrac.co/media. mrac.co/media. I would put this into the Facebook group, but I don't have a chance to do it right now. But you can find it, mrac.co/media, and you will be able to participate and sign up in Muckrack's Fundamentals of Media Relations, a free, on-demand, 2-hour course and certification. So hope you will sign up for that from our friends at Muckrack. I'm an advisor with Muckrack, and it's a real pleasure to work with this great organization. We're also sponsored by Pajama Program. This is a wonderful opportunity for you to support the children of essential workers. For each $10 donation made, Pajama Program will deliver a new pair of pajamas and a book to support the child of an essential worker. Please donate today by going to this link, bit.ly/pajama1. bit.ly/pajama1. This donation was made by a third party who paid for this ad. We're so grateful, and this is a chance for you to support bit.ly/pajama1 to support the Pajama Program. And for every $10 donation you can make, we will be able to deliver a pair of pajamas and a book to support the child of an essential worker in the United States. So please do take a look at that. And if you'd like to make an ad, you can do that very easily. Support this show and support your favorite small business, your nonprofit, or anyone else you would like. You can see the prices are very reasonable for this global connection. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Now it's time for you to meet our guest. We're going to be talking to Ambassador TP Sreenivasan, who is also my dad. He's a retired ambassador. He's the author of 7 books and the host of an international affairs show on Asianet, the largest Malayalam language television network. And you can see him on that show on Asianet, on YouTube, and on cable around the world. So let me bring on my dad, TP Sreenivasan. Hi, Dad. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
How are you this morning?
Okay.
Or rather evening in New York, right?
10:48 here. It's 8:15
Yes.
there. Is that right? 8:18?
It is 8:20 here.
Yeah, 8:20. One of the things that's very irritating for people when I tell them is that India has a half-hour difference on the time difference.
Your voice is breaking.
You're having trouble hearing me?
Your voice is breaking.
Okay. So tell me about what's happening in Kerala right now. I'm going to ask Neil to step in, our friend and producer, to come into the show and see if he's able to hear my dad better.
Ambassador Sreenivasan, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Good.
Thank you. Good
So
to see you.
can you tell us what's happening in India right now
Well,
with COVID-19?
Well, we are supposed to be the 15th most difficult situation in the countries of the world. So, which is one way it is soothing, but at the same time it is troubling because you can see those lines, and it has been increasing in the last few days. So we are going to finish this round of lockdown on the 3rd, and most likely it will be extended with some concessions. So we are just keeping our fingers crossed because we really do not know what the trend is. But the biggest challenge...
Sorry to interrupt.
No, but the biggest challenge that we are going to face is the expected return of a large number of Indians from different parts of the world. We have been signing up people who want to come back, and it's already reached 300,000, 3 lakhs of people from about 130 countries wanting to come back as soon as possible.
Sure.
Because the largest group is from the Gulf, and they are mostly from Kerala. So Kerala says it is all ready to receive them. They have all the facilities arranged. But the central government is still delaying it because they feel that there is some amount of concern about an immediate arrival of a large number of people.
Absolutely.
So that is really the issue being discussed at the moment as to what the timing of this should be. Then there is this question of migrant labor. We have many in different states, and Kerala has a large number too. They all want to go back, but there is no transportation, but they are being taken care of. But so that is the next step. I think now the government of India just announced yesterday that buses can be used to send them back. So that may be the first process. So all these we are looking at with anxiety because at the moment we are kind of holding on. And no particular incident should upset it, as it happened a little while earlier when there was a mosque group unexpectedly, imbalanced the whole situation.
Sure.
And therefore, the government is very, 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 very cautious. And the trend is, of course, it is growing. It is not receding. Kerala, of course, has been exceptional because we have really been able to manage it so far. And very few deaths, very few in hospital. So probably the best in the whole of India. But all this, when we get all these compliments, I simply say, keep our fingers crossed because there is no logic in this and there is no way you can identify what exactly the right thing that we have done or what is likely to happen. And so the sense of uncertainty that is there around the world, we are also going through the same experience.
For people who are just joining us, I just want to remind you that our guest today is Ambassador T.P. Sreenivasan, retired ambassador of India, author and TV host. You may also know him as Sree Sreenivasan's father. My name is Neil Parekh. I'm not Sree Sreenivasan. This is Shree's COVID-19 call, but I am the executive producer for many of Shree's shows. And apparently his pinch hitter ready to step in at a moment's notice. He threw up a bat signal, and I stepped in to help out. So we're going to see whether Shree's audio is working better now, and if Ambassador Sreenivasan can hear his son from across the world. Sree, please say hello.
Hi, Opa.
Yeah, it's better. But
Great.
Neil is coming out more clear. And his audio is much better.
Yeah, Neil is just a better person. That's why. See, you're always being judged by your father. That's clearly
and a magician with all these electronic stuff, right?
All these electronics.
Yes, he absolutely is. So Neil, if you'll stand by, we'll see how it goes, and then we'll hopefully my dad can hear me. But he always did like you better, so that's clearly what's happening here.
Well, I will say before I let you go, Sree, our families have known each other for so many years, 25 plus years. And in fact, I like telling the story, and Ambassador, you might know this, I actually knew you before I met Sree.
Is that so?
My father obviously knew you very well in New York, my mom as well, and they knew Sree, and they sent me to his wedding reception to bring greetings from
Well,
our family. And I went in the line at the
missions in New York and Washington for a total of 10 years.
Yeah.
It's an unprecedented kind of term that I had in the US.
So I went to the embassy in DC.
Yes.
And went through the receiving line and said, "Hello, Sree. My name is Neil. You don't know me, but you know my father. Rupa, nice to meet you. Congratulations." That's how we met. But I'll step out, Sree. I'll let you return to interviewing this very, very important guest. If you need me, I'll be in the background for you.
Thank you very much, Neil.
Okay, see you, Neil. See you.
Everyone, please follow Neil Parekh on Twitter. Neil Parekh, Parekh. He is a terrific part of our team that's producing events all day long. We've produced multiple events today. We just did an hour of my Hong Kong University show, University of Hong Kong show. And now we're talking to my dad in India. We wanted to get an update from India. So let's just introduce everyone to my father. You heard him talk about what's happening in Kerala right now and also in India. So he's the author of 7 books, but I only have 6 of them here. And we will try to talk about all of them. But the latest one is actually called Mode Diplomacy through a Shakespearean Prism. It's about international affairs through the eyes of William Shakespeare. This is his second book, which has had a Shakespearean title, because his first book is called Words, 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 and that's taken from Hamlet, because Polonius asks Hamlet, "What do you hear?" And he said, "What do you read, my lord?" And he says, "Words, words, words." Act 2, Scene 2 of Hamlet. So you can tell that my father loves Shakespeare, and that's one of the many things we'll talk about. He also wrote a book about the education of an ambassador, how he fought to reform India's Kerala state and its higher education system. He had lots of adventures and misadventures as part of that. He also wrote a book called Applied Diplomacy, which were essays about looking at diplomacy through the prism of mythology. And he also had a book about the campaign a few years ago of Shashi Tharoor, who was the former Undersecretary General of the United Nations. And he wrote a book about his campaign called Mattering to India. And then one of my favorite books, which is Encounters, where he talked about the famous people that he interviewed. You can see the Dalai Lama, Angela Merkel, as well as Nelson Mandela, and also the former ambassador, former president of India. On there, you can see Ambassador Narayanan. So he is such a prolific writer. He's written 7 books in 14 years. And there's one more book about a former boss of his, the former Foreign Secretary of India, whose book isn't here. But first, thank you for making the time, and also for talking about India. Tell me about the COVID situation broadly. How is it that when we looked at this chart, India is, as you said, you were not sure why, but look where America is and look where India is. Does this ruin America's reputation in India and the world?
Well, in the present stage, as I mentioned earlier, we are the 15th most affected country in the world. So, which gives us a certain amount of comfort and relief. But we really cannot attribute to any particular activity or a particular approach, because we have used several approaches. We came to the lockdown approach about 40, 50 days ago, as it happened in your case. And that has had an impact. And people are very reluctant to lift the lockdown because there is a fear that there could be the situation might deteriorate if you lift all the controls. So we are all looking anxiously at the date of 3rd May, when this is supposed to be reviewed. And all the indications that come from the Prime Minister of India is that this is likely to continue. And I was also mentioning that the point about the return of a large number of Indians And we have had started registration of people who really want to come back as soon as possible. We have already crossed the 300,000 mark in Kerala alone from 130 countries. Of course, the most pressing cases are from the Gulf, where we have something like 9 million Indians. But fortunately, all of them are not asking to come back because they want to stay back and work for the country in the future also. But there are several others who are affected, who are sick or who do not have the right documents and so on. So when they come, though we are ready and facilities have been prepared for them, nobody knows exactly what the impact of that would be. That's another concern that we have. But on the whole, India has done well. Kerala has done well better than the other states because of our primary healthcare system, which is being applauded by many people, including Washington Post and New York Times. So these are all comforting thoughts, but at the same time, it is no point. We have not reached a point of relief. We are all keeping our fingers crossed and continuing the efforts. And it's all linked with the whole world, as you know, because there is nothing like this which seems to have affected every corner of the world. I believe Tuvalu is the only country where there is no COVID-19 yet. And I used to be High Commissioner to Tuvalu. But I was disturbed to find that a women's cricket team is going to, not Tuvalu, but Vanuatu. And they are going to play in Vanuatu because there is no COVID-19. So I'm very much afraid that the cricket team might, in fact, disturb that situation. But other than that, every country in the world seems to have been affected in one way or the other. And so we cannot isolate a particular country and say so-and-so is doing well or so-and-so is doing badly. Of course, US and Italy are exceptional, and UK. But other countries are more or less handling it, but with much trepidation and without any idea as to what the future holds for us. Of course, talking about international relations, there is so much being written about what the post-corona world would be like. And everybody is agreed that we don't know. But then, diplomats and strategists and analysts must analyze even if they don't know. So there are two trends in this which I have noticed. On the one hand, there are people like Kissinger, who says that we will not recognize the post-corona world. It will be so different. And of course, he doesn't say how different, but he says you will not recognize that. And that has been one thought which many people share. And the other thought, first expressed by Richard Haas, whom you all know, who said that, the world does not change like that. The world just moves on. And what the COVID-19 might do is to accelerate the changes which are already in play. So these are the two thoughts. And I generally agree with the second approach because we expected many, many changes after 9/11. We expected many, many changes after the economic crisis of 2008. Yes, many things changed. You can identify them. But the world went on more or less as before. The nuclear arms race we thought would end because it's meaningless to have nuclear arms. But the nuclear arms race has continued. People have behaved exactly as they used to do in the past. And except for the searches at the airport, that is the only time you remember 9/11 these days, because that has become part of our life. So similarly, there will be changes. I suppose at searches at airport will now go into health situation, and therefore we may all have to wait longer entering and traveling and coming back to our countries. So that may stay, but other than that, things will move on. And at the moment, nobody knows what the situation will be with regard to China as well as the United States. As you know, the problems between them are increasing, though the Chinese are not saying very much. The Americans have been speaking about China, and so there is tension evolving there. But other countries, you do not see that, and people are very, very careful and thoughtful about commenting on these issues. India, for example, has not said a word about China or anyone else. And we have been, of course, unfortunate that we ordered some equipment from them which turned out to be below quality. But other than that, we are dealing with the Chinese. We have sent relief equipment to them. We have purchased things from them, and we have not made any comment from the government side as to whether the Chinese have any special responsibility. So, so the international situation is fairly stable. Everybody is anxious, and nobody is trying to score points over the others, because everybody knows that we are all together in this particular crisis. But there are so many predictions as to when it will end. Your prediction is as good as mine. India, there are so many astrologers. There is a boy who predicted that the end of April it will all end. But he himself has come up and said, sorry, there has been a slight miscalculation about the position of the planets, without remembering what Shakespeare once said, don't blame the planets. We are responsible for what we do or what we don't do. But he has now readjusted his prophecy to about August or September, which seems to be the same calculations that we get from the Israeli experts. We get the same from Singapore, which is quite optimistic. So that is really the question as to how long are we going to be with this virus and change our style. Education is another huge issue, because already things have all been moved. Our academic year used to be in June. Now we seem to be shifting to the American style of September. So here it is, a quick change has already taken place. Our examinations are yet to be held. So, and then can we have classrooms anytime soon? India has very little learning by computer, because we believe in the Guru Shishya, that is the disciple and the Guru kind of tradition. And we feel that is the best form of education. And teachers are like gods. When we talk about father, mother, Guru, Devam. So all these four are the same. And therefore, we do not have great faith in computer education. And also there are problems in India because we do not have enough computer capacity. We do not have even electricity continuously in many parts of India. We do not have the equipment, but we have been forced to do this. Suddenly you find all institutions are turning into, primary things like Zoom, etc., in order to give the feeling of education. And the parents are getting more and more involved in their education. I find that my grandson in Dubai is being educated by his mother all the time, and both of them are very happy. But what it holds for him's future is something which is causing concern to all of us. So education is one thing we have to deal with, and though we are now doing that in a way, but people are not happy, and they're all waiting to get back to the normal education system, and that is going to be a big challenge also. And if the lockdown continues, what happens to the industry? What happens to agriculture? What happens to everything else, the way of life? And so the one worry is poverty. Another worry is food production. And all these are concerns. I mean, these are not special for India, but we are slightly better than the others, merely maybe because of God's grace, merely because of good luck, all those things. And so nothing to be taken credit for. But certainly every day you get updating reports. In Kerala, the Chief Minister himself speaks to us every day at 6 o'clock. I don't think there is any leader of the government doing that. So there is optimism, there is confidence, but of course there is continuing concern and anxiety.
So let me show people this article you mentioned in the Washington Post: aggressive testing, contact tracing, cooked meals, how the Indian state of Kerala flattened its coronavirus curve. One of the headlines of this was also about the communist state. So just give people a quick lesson why there's a communist government in today's world.
In fact, the Washington Post was very wrong when it said that continuous communist government in Kerala for 30 years. This has not happened. In fact, most governments are coalition governments. and they are all not communists. There are others in it every time. And also every 5 years, these coalitions keep changing. So right from before independence, the days of the Maharaja, the king, the royalty, from reforms which started at that time, for example, basic education and basic health, these are all established by the Maharaja. And so immediately when after Kerala became a state, we had a communist government which had to resign for various reasons. And then after that, every 5 years, we have a new coalition. So when Washington Post said that continuous communist governments are responsible for this, I think it was a wrong information. That I think we should be corrected. So, and the good thing is that the so-called Kerala model of development, which we have been hearing about it for a long time. When they say model, what they mean is not that it is a model for the others, but it has been distinct in its economic activity. Because the Kerala model, the meaning is that with a fairly low economic growth, they have been able to acquire, they have been able to get the same kind of development in social and education sectors as in Europe. For example, many of the fundamental statistics, if you take infant mortality, women's health, education of people who go into schools, etc., we are as good, or longevity, we are as good as OECD countries. And that is what is called the Kerala model. And this Kerala model has been adopted by every government, regardless of party. Why communists are here when there are no communists anywhere in the world? That, of course, is a philosophical question because Keralites have been very hopeful that communism will bring about equality, will bring about socialism, etc. So even after the world has realized that this is not going to happen and the world has changed, we have been fairly loyal to that group, but they don't always win. They only win once in 5 years. So that is something that has to be corrected. So the credit should go not only to one government or one party, it should go to everybody, because starting from the royalty, then the arrival of Christianity is a very significant element, because they are the ones who built all the schools and the hospitals. Even today, private-public participation is very significant in Kerala education. Even though the government has a policy of encouraging public, that is government institutions, particularly schools. And when I tried to bring in private universities or linkages with foreign university, there was a backlash. People were not willing to accept that because they thought that this was some kind of neo-colonialism, which was not the intention at all. But that is the kind of mindset that we have among some people. And therefore, our education growth has not been the same as in other countries, because we still go by traditional means. But very recently, the government has started giving special attention to government schools, who are now catching up with the missionary schools and others. But still, we cannot claim that we have a modern education. It is still traditional. Still, the subjects we learn are those which were taught elsewhere maybe 50 years ago. So that's a problem. So there's a long gap between one end of the spectrum and the other in terms of the quality of education. And the result is most people who can afford it go outside Kerala, outside India, and that trend is continuing. And that may change as a result of COVID-19, because if the travels become restricted and people have to stay in their own states, then we have to be more attentive to our education system. I have been trying to propagate use of computers for education, but all kinds of resistance is being put up.
Let me show them the resistance. You mentioned resistance.
Sorry?
You mentioned resistance
Sorry?
to some of your the work that
What
you
did you
did. You
Sorry?
you mentioned resistance. Tell them about this, what we're looking at here. What is on this? What is here, Acharya?
This is something which I'd like to forget. so because it is something which happened as a result of total ignorance on the part of some students, or the students were kind of put up to it. Because I was organizing a global conference on education. We had something like 35 or 36 vice chancellors from all around the world. It was simply to share experience. And this was projected as some kind of effort to bring private universities and also foreign universities into Kerala. I never suggested that. I only suggested that greater collaboration with foreign universities. So it was a politically motivated attack on me. Fortunately, I was not hurt. But it was a traumatic experience, not only for me, but for the whole state. But I don't talk about it because I don't want to talk about unpleasant things. And I would like to look forward. And I always tell them that I'm fine now. So it could have been worse. And
it could have been worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the book?
Not the other one.
How many books? Yeah.
And this cover picture is something taken just 15 minutes after the attack on me. I had not changed clothes. I went straight onto the podium of an international audience and inaugurated the conference. Nobody could see there was anything wrong. I simply said that we have a very active democracy, and sometimes militant democracy, and therefore you should understand that. But I'm sure all those 36 gentlemen or ladies will never come back to Kerala. That is for certain.
Okay, let's read some of the comments that have come in from around the world. Jonathan is watching from the East Village. Hi, Jonathan. Thank you. He has watched 48 straight episodes. We also had the incredible Rosemary Aquilina. She's the judge who put away Larry Nassar in the USA gymnastics scandal. She was also a guest on our other show that Neil helps produce. He's the executive producer. And she was on our show talking and the New York Times read along. And this was just a few weeks ago. You can see my entire catalog of shows that we do, the Sunday New York Times read along, as well as my daily COVID show, by going on my YouTube account, youtube.com/Sreenet. And please subscribe so you can see all of these great shows. We have also this past week, Claudia Dreyfus, who is a very well-known American journalist, writes for the New York Times, and she was there. And we have coming up this Sunday, we're very excited for Mickey Maynard, who is an experienced journalist, author, broadcaster, and the award-winning Detroit bureau chief of the New York Times. So that will be this Sunday, 8:30 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, which is about 6 p.m. in Kerala and in India. So with all these great comments coming in, let's see. Anna is watching from Canberra, Australia again. I heard this morning that the people of Kerala have been issued with umbrellas to aid in their social distancing. Good idea. Do you know what that is about umbrellas? About umbrellas, do you know what this is? We're going to have Neil step in.
Absolutely. Ambassador Sreenivasan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good.
There's something wrong with Sree's audio, I think. Yeah.
Apparently, there's this question from Canberra. Anna was asking that they heard that the people of Kerala had been issued umbrellas to aid in social distancing. Do you know anything about that?
No, I have not heard that.
No?
That is to measure the distance or to, for the shade from the sun? What is it for?
Yeah. Our friend
measure
Renee.
the length of the umbrella.
Yeah. Our friend
I've
Renee is
never
glad that Sree is interviewing you. I hope, Renee, that you're also glad that I'm interviewing Ambassador Sreenivasan every now and then as we deal with audio issues. We should mention that Rose Horowitz, who is a good friend of ours, she's Rose Horowitz 31 on Twitter, is joining from Connecticut. She's tweeting about this, and I'm sure that she's tagging at Sreeniv, which is Ambassador Sreenivasan's Twitter account, in all her posts. Vandana Menon is also tweeting as well. So that was the question about pink umbrellas. Our friend Steve Taylor, who's another producer of our shows, is watching. John Lakshmi is from Atlanta is saying hello. Sonali Chandra is actually saying that she can't believe that Sree is doing a show at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, which is late for some people, not late for some of us. Sree and I usually do our business calls at 11:30, sometimes midnight as well. Diane Stefani is saying good evening from Margate, New Jersey. So many people are so thrilled to hear from you, and we've had you as a guest on our New York Times read along a few times as well, and those have always been insightful shows. One of the things that I think someone was asking earlier, I remember there was a question. I think Ying Chan, who actually works with Sree on these Hong Kong University calls. We just finished one earlier this evening. She appreciates her insights. What can India and China learn from each other? And thinking of it more broadly, what has the impact on Indo-Chinese relations been under COVID-19? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, I mentioned to Sree a little while ago that India has not said anything about Chinese role in this officially. No comment has been made. We are maintaining our relations with China by cooperating. We had bought some equipment from them, which turned out to be faulty. We also sent some medicines, etc. And in other words, the relations have not been affected in any way. There has not been any development which would be negative, except one thing that the government of India did recently was to say that any foreign investment from China will have to be cleared with the government, because we had generally liberalized foreign investment in India. But recently there are reports that the Chinese were buying a number of companies in India at a very low price. And this caused some concern, and therefore it was a very China-specific, though we didn't say China, we said neighborhood-specific. The neighboring countries wanting to invest in India must get the clearance from the government of India. And this is the only measure we seem to have taken to deal with a problem which has come out of COVID-19 with China. But otherwise, there are no exchanges, there are no problems being raised. As you know, we have many problems with China, but no talk of it. Because as you know, China is trying to project the image of a good boy, having controlled the pandemic. Now they want to help others. And that is the image that they are building, and that is the way they are approaching us. And that's fine with us for the time being, and we are not not waking up sleeping dogs at this particular time.
What do you think, if we think long term with COVID-19, at some point, hopefully we'll get to the other side of this. We will start returning to normal. Do you think there'll be any long-term impacts on diplomacy among countries? Is it too early to tell?
Well, it's too early to tell. Everybody says the same thing, but there will be changes because the already globalization had been disturbed. Multilateral diplomacy has suffered basically because of President Trump's policies. He didn't care about any kind of global cooperation. He didn't think it was not necessary. In his UN speech, he mentioned that. And following that, even regional cooperation has suffered. So this is a process which is already on. So it is not that this is something sudden. The failure of the United Nations to do anything in the case of the COVID-19 is also nothing new, because it is 75 years old. So it is showing signs of old age, signs of forgetfulness, signs of inability to act, etc., etc. So these are all things which have not been brought about by COVID, but being accelerated by COVID. And therefore, when that happens, there has to be a readjustment. And who are the people who are now likely to come to the center? Particularly because the United States has been showing symptoms of withdrawing from world leadership. I hope that will change, whether with the same president or another, because there is no alternative to US leadership for the world, whether it is in the case of economy. I'm not forgetting the big losses and disasters facing the United States today. But still, I do not think China can come anywhere near the United States in a hurry. Even earlier, the long-term prediction was 25 to 30 years for the Chinese to catch up with the United States. But now it may be even longer. So if this, we are all hoping, the world is hoping that the US will take on its international responsibilities. But doesn't, what happens is the question. We have been talking of a multipolar world of 6 countries taking the lead. United States, Russia, China, the 3 big ones, then India, Japan, and the European Union. So these were supposed to be the 6 poles that would develop in a multipolar world. But the United States still continues to be the most powerful country in the world. And somebody said, we just pity the United States, no other feeling as far as the US is concerned, no anger, it is just pity. That such a great country, such a well-developed and rich country should come to this. And so the hope remains that something will turn up and the US will play its role. But if it doesn't, then what happens is the question.
That's what I was going to ask you. If the US, right now, I think some are saying that the US is not playing the role it should on the international stage. What will this do to the long-term standing of the United States? Would they be able to reassert their role, reassert their prominence?
I think so. I think so. Hopefully there will be a change of government, or even if it does not happen, there will be change of heart in the leadership. And having seen what has happened in the world, they might pull up and try to get back their original position, because the world is quite willing to. It is not wealth alone that gives you leadership. There's also to be certain values, there has to be a certain history, there has to be a certain confidence. All these we had for the United States. So people are not going to give it up because of a microbe. I don't think that's going to happen, provided that the leadership will be able to command that kind of respect. So everybody is looking forward to the elections in November. We don't even know whether it will be held. So there are so many imponderables. But China is waiting, ready to take over, as it were. But that's not going to be easy for them.
We're looking forward to those. Sorry to interrupt. We're looking forward to those elections as well. I do want to make a technical note. Mary Mendez is watching on Facebook, and she's just saying she's wishing there were subtitles to this talk. Mary, what I would recommend is that if you watch the show on YouTube, either after the fact, you can turn on closed captioning, or another thing to consider, you might be able to use the Otter.ai app, and you might be able to get a transcription, simultaneous transcription while you're watching. So for people who are having trouble, understanding, that might be a solution. We just wanted to make sure that everyone can understand, everyone can get the benefit of what you're sharing, Ambassador.
Thank you. If I speak louder, will it help if I speak louder?
I don't think it's necessarily an issue of speaking louder. But we know that people are sometimes they're visual learners. They can understand it better if they can read. And there are ways, particularly after the fact, you can get YouTube is a good source for that if you watch. And we are live on Sree's YouTube channel. You can see it on the bottom of your screen, youtube.com/Sreenet, SREENET. I think that one of the things that we've also been, really interested in is the movement of peoples in this current environment. I know my mom came home March 15th or so, March 14th, right before India went under lockdown. You spoke about that earlier. That will likely be extended. There are a number of people who have not been able.
In the U.S. She's in the U.S. lockdown.
She came back now.
Oh, okay.
She had been in India until March. I know that Sree often talks about not knowing when he'll be able to fly home to see you and your wife and other family. So that's one of the challenges that people are having. John Lakshmi is asking a good question here. I'll bring it up on the screen. What is the status of the supply chain for food in India? Can you speak to that?
You mean essential goods and food
Yeah.
and so on? Excellent. So far,
Is
there
it
has
no
been no
problem?
problem. In fact, the chief minister has been announcing, at least in terms of Kerala, he announces the stock that he has every day in terms of tons. He says, I have so many pulses, so much rice, so much sugar, so much salt. Anyway, thank you, John Lakshmi, for keeping us informed about all that happens in the US press. I don't know how he manages it, but he is compulsory reading for me. Thank you, John.
We've had our own challenges with the supply chain that we get assurances that the supplies are there. It's just a question of they're moving off the shelves much quicker than people anticipated. That's why there are shortages in some areas. But we also anticipate there's some food processing plants that may either they're being asked to stay open at risk to the workers,
Employees.
or they may have to close down, and they'll cause a challenge with the food supply. So it remains to be seen how that plays out here. One question we're getting from YouTube, I mentioned YouTube earlier. Sharon Mansour is asking, will the present crisis be a launchpad for BRICS to the international arena? BRICS.
But anyway, talking about supplies, I mean, such things may happen here also. Depends on when we are able to completely normalize our production capacity. And till that happens, there could be shortages here also. But till today, I've not heard of non-availability of any of the essential goods. We don't have access to the malls and the shops and so on. But what we need, particularly during the lockdown, we are quite comfortable. There is no anxiety on that score.
Going in a different direction, what about we talked earlier about the lockdown, the extension of the lockdown. How is this affecting the various political parties in India? Are some parties having a increased confidence from their constituencies? Do you see any shifts happening in terms of popularity? The Modi government, for example, or any of the other opposition parties?
Yes, but the political differences still persist. There are all kinds of arguments, the opposition saying that the government is not doing well, etc.
Of course.
But the unspoken truth is that both the central government as well as the Kerala government are doing extremely well within their limitations. But the opposition has to oppose, and therefore they find issues which they raise, not occasionally, almost every day, about behavior, because the elections are not too far in Kerala. So far, as I was explaining, every 5 years, the governments were changing in the last 30 years.
Minority government.
But this time, because the government has done so well, they are very hopeful that they may be able to break that chain and get a second mandate. And that will be very historical.
So public opinion is actually...
Therefore, the opposition is very worried about that. And therefore, they're trying to raise issues all the time. As far as Mr. Modi is concerned, he had a blessing in disguise, because the two issues about which he was being rattled, the one on the Kashmir, the 370, and the second one on the Citizenship Act. And it was reaching dangerous proportions, even though both these were necessary and essential, and that was long overdue. But the sentiments were being raised, and it was reaching very dangerous proportions when this whole thing happened. So therefore, the focus has shifted completely from that. Nobody is speaking about it at this point. So that way, he had a blessing in disguise. But I don't think he's enjoying it. Probably it would be better to deal with a known enemy and a seen enemy than an unseen one. So
do you think this could turn the other way for Prime Minister Modi? If because he has been very popular in India. Is this still? Is there still the potential for this being his undoing, or do you think he has enough popularity that he can ride this out?
In the northern India, he still has a great popularity because of these various measures that he has taken. But in the south, there are some differences, and particularly where there are minorities are involved, they are anxious, they are concerned. People, intellectuals, etc., who have been very, very liberal and very broad-minded, have turned into, what shall we say, communalists in many of these areas. What they write now are not the things that they would have ever written before. So that tendency is there, but in terms of votes, it has not reduced his support because northern India is much, much, much larger. But that was being eroded as a result of the opposition to the Kashmir reform as well as the citizenship. The citizenship issue really disturbed the minorities. Though there is no reason to disturb because this is all about foreign people who are coming from other states. I mean, but why should anybody of any religion living in India worry about the Citizenship Act? He doesn't have to even go to a place to get any documents.
Sure.
But it has completely been misread or misunderstood or misled, I don't know. But that was becoming an issue and becoming a very major agitation. But
Sure.
it may come back once we are over with the COVID-19. But I hope some amount of sense of realism will also set in. Mr. Modi has handled the crisis well. He is in charge of the situation. He doesn't answer journalists, but he speaks to the people all the time, whether on radio or television. And he keeps people informed of what he wants to do. And he consults the chief ministers regularly over video conferencing. He talks to the villagers, he talks to journalists, everybody. So he kept it open. And
So, as a reminder, sorry to interrupt, I just want to remind a good a best practice for people when you're hosting a show like this, as Sree comes back on, I just want to remind everyone that this is Shree's Sree COVID-19 call, his daily COVID-19 show on live stream to Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube and Twitter in partnership with scroll.in. Our guest today is Ambassador T.P. Sreenivasan, retired ambassador of India, author and TV host. My name is Neil Parekh. I am not the host of this show. I am not a Sreenivasan, so I feel out of place here, but maybe I can be adopted as part of the family, be an honorary Sreenivasan. I'm stepping in to co-host today, and I'm hoping that Shree's audio issues may be resolved. We'll do a quick test. Sree, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and thank you, Neil. Neil is an honorary Srinivasan for a whole multitude of reasons. Thank you so much, Neil, for being here. We're almost done with the show. One of the things you learned is my dad is a professor and a teacher, and trying to get him to talk in shorter sound bites is very hard, is one of the things you're learning in this. And he's also a TV host.
I think your audio is still working. He just heard that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you might have thought your audio wasn't. Ambassador, you heard that, right?
Yes. I heard everything. Now he's right. He's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Neil, for the help.
Thank you, Neil, as always. And as he points out, his mom, Sudha Parekh, has known my father and mother for 25, 30, 40 years because of Neil's father, who, by the way, was an awesome lawyer and then publisher of News India Times. And Neil got to work with him. What an honor to work with your own father.
Yeah.
And Neil, if you can, just very quickly tell the story about your dad and the New York Times.
Absolutely. Ambassador, I don't know if you know the story, if you would have heard it on one of the read-alongs, but at home, we used to get the New York Times every day growing up, when I was growing up. And my father passed away about a little more than 10 years ago now, 2009. When he passed, one of his wishes was to be cremated with a copy of the Sunday paper, the Sunday New York Times, in his casket. We
a lot of time to read. He had a lot of time to read it.
And finally, he had a chance to read it. He took that with him, and it certainly was we were happy to honor that wish. I grew up in New York. Grew up with the New York Times, with the news. We watched NBC, local and national news every day. And certainly we were always paying attention. Sree, I want to give a shout out if we're talking about news and talking about sources. at the time that you were in New York, Ambassador, if you remember, Vision of Asia, Cinema. We had the Lions of Indian media, India Abroad, of course. We worked
India Abroad,
at
yes.
times with Aziz Hanifa, the longtime bureau chief in Washington, D.C., Gopal Raju, Rohit Vyas with TV Asia, Gita Bajaj, all these luminaries. I grew up watching them Saturday morning. We would turn on the theme song, still run in my head.
That was the only window to the world that we had, the only window to India that we had at that time.
And I want to shout out
India Abroad, because India Abroad closed down its print edition.
As well as Bridge Lal, if you remember, who used
very
to have
much so,
the show
very much so.
on WFUV in out of Fordham. I'm the name of the radio show is escaping me, Sree. I don't know if you remember it, but it was just phenomenal. It was great to have all those sources, so those are great memories, Sree. Thank you for asking about that.
Thank you. And Renee is pleased to see that it's fun to learn that Sree and your families have been friends for decades. And we have lots of good questions coming in. I did want to show a couple of photographs. Whenever anybody sees my dad, they always say how young he looks. Well, I want you to see how young he was when he first had me. And even now, he looks like my older brother, even though he has passed a milestone birthday last year. But this is a fun photo of us. I'm going to remove the banner so you can see it clearly. Here it is. And this is a photo of me and my dad in 1970. Neil, I don't know if I've shown you these pictures before, but there's Tokyo 1970 and New York City in 2015 or so. And you have better hair than I do now. My dad does.
I'm gonna take the privilege, Sree, if you don't mind. I'm gonna take myself off the screen. Sree and Ambassador Sreenivasan, if you can lean to the your respective sides the other way, Sree, we'll get a picture of all of you on the stage. So just lean so we can see you.
Oh, this way. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Okay. Actually, to the other side. Lean. The other way. Lean more. Yeah, there you go. No, turn your head. Yeah, perfect. Okay.
I was wanting you to see Mother Teresa at the back.
Yeah, we have to talk about that. Mother Teresa is behind my dad in this photograph, and Mother Teresa was an inspiration to our family. And that painting is done by my mother, who's a wonderful artist and dancer. And as a wife of an ambassador, she had to play hostess to dozens of parties a month. And she's downstairs. That's their home. It's a study in Kerala. I wanted to show people also what where Kerala is, because not everybody knows it. So we're just going to show Kerala on a map, and you can see India and that famous the famous peninsula of India, the southern half here. You can see Tamil Nadu, and then Kerala at the very bottom, and there's Sri Lanka. And we went last year to celebrate the 50th birth. This picture is in the way, so hold on. Let me remove that picture for a minute. And there you see Kerala and where it is in India. Kerala is also known for having 100% literacy. Having the oldest synagogue outside of the Middle East is in Kerala. Yeah, it also has a very big population of Christians, because Christianity came to Kerala in 42 AD, just after the birth.
Saint Thomas came to Kerala.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So talk about this photo, Acha. Where is this? The one on top. The photo on top is in Tokyo, Japan in 1970. And you can see how young my dad...
1970, yes.
Yeah.
You were born in October, as you know.
Yeah. Why were you, 50 years ago, why were you in Japan? Tell us how you ended up there. Why Japan?
In Tokyo. We have a system in the Foreign Service. You can opt for a particular language. There are several languages offered. And you can choose a language. And your first posting depends on what language you get. So I got Japanese, and therefore I got posted to Japan. And my job was simply to go to a university or a language school and learn Japanese for more than a year. And then I joined the embassy. and soon got transferred out. And this is the system, depending on where you go for language training. So it was my language training posting. But unfortunately, I never went back to Japan on a posting after that because of various reasons. Partly because of my own preferences, partly because of the ministry's own yardsticks that you could not, for example, go from New York to Tokyo and things like that. So rotational principle. So somehow I didn't make it back to Japan, but Japan was our first posting. Our first son was born there. In so many ways, it is a landmark posting for us. And we still have very clear memories of what we went through in Japan. It was a very pleasant and very eye-opening. My first trip abroad was to Japan. So in 1970, Japan was phenomenal. It has just grown out of a huge tragedy. And it had reached the pinnacle of industrial progress at that time. Not they have changed, but others have caught up with them. For example, in 1970 Expo in Osaka, Indian pavilion had only a white tiger, nothing else to show in terms of technology or in terms of progress. And we had, of course, the nice-looking Indians in saris serving Indian tea, nothing else. But the entire exhibition was about technology, about computers, about everything else which Japan was leading. But today, if there is an expo in Japan, you can imagine what we would be able to show. Certainly not white tigers. So that was the big difference at that time. But now we are caught up with all that and it will be a different India. But at that time, we were very much struck by this. And the Japanese have been good to us all through. Our relations were not all that, it was cordial, but it was not without much substance because the Japanese foreign policy was American foreign policy. And since we had a problem being non-aligned, created some tensions, etc. But after Mr. Abe became the Prime Minister, it has completely transformed. And Japan is one of our strongest friends, particularly in the Indian Ocean region. So you may have heard about something called the quadrilateral, 4 countries who are supposed to be working together: United States, India, Japan, and Australia. This has, of course, caused concern in China because they think that this is some kind of a ganging up against China. But that's not the intention. The intention is to keep Indian Ocean free of tension, conflict, and also to cooperate together in using the resources available in the Indian Ocean. And so India-Japan relations today cover even nuclear cooperation, which is unthinkable some years ago.
Let me just say that I tell our children, your grandchildren, that when you're feeling down about what's happening in the world today, imagine being a young person in Japan outside of the bombing zones in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You would have imagined that the world there would never be a world again. But in 25 years, as you said, from 1945 to 1970, Japan was on top of the world. And so that shows you that things in life are cyclical, that things change, that things move in cycles. So that should give hope to people. Renee says, you and I look like siblings. And the word that some of you are hearing me say, acha. Acha means, in Hindi, means good, but in Malayalam, it means father. And so that's why you hear him call that. Shashank says, good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. And Rajni says, and you always enjoy your show. And we met in Miami in the March at BAPS seminar. That was the last trip I took to Miami. And my cousin Gopika is watching. She's an amazing dancer. She's my first cousin. She and her parents helped raise me when I would go to India with my grandparents. And we're so grateful technology can bring us together. She had an amazing triumphant dance tour of America for her Mohiniyattam style of dance. And it was thrilling to see her perform professionally like that. And John says that the ambassador's overview and observations are very helpful to get a balanced view of the condition in India. Thanks. And BNS Geo Goku Great says, I've also been interviewing world experts on health and mindset. Please take a look. So if you can take a look at that and participate. We really appreciate this. Before we let you go, Acha, any words of wisdom that you want to leave people with?
Well, the optimism that you expressed, and that is the main point. That if you were to think and worry that I have two two children in the hot spots of the world, one in New York and one in Dubai, you might think that I would be the most stressed out person in the world. I should be. But I'm very optimistic. I have confidence because faith in God is very important because I've been through many problems. But so I always thought it was my mother's prayers which helped me. So similarly, we hope that our prayers will help you too. And also optimism that there is a sense of optimism is all that can sustain us. Otherwise, if you think of the worst of things, then you will not be able to sustain in such a crisis. So we manage, and optimism remains, and faith in God.
So that's great. Now I want to show you, if I can, a photograph that you've not seen in a while. So let me show that, and then people can take a look. Acha, can you see this photograph?
I can't see the face.
Okay, but no, you can see the photograph of a shirt and pants, and it's a post I did in 2013 when I came to your house in Kerala. I was trying to change, and then you took my shirt and you unprompted, you ironed my clothes that morning. Those are your clothes because when I come travel very light because we can share shirts and pants at least, and even socks sometimes, but not more than that. And I said, a father's work is never done, even when your son is 42, and that how you iron those clothes. So that I thought was a funny moment that everyone should see.
It was just the duty. I did not even think of it as anything else.
Yeah. But then you've set a very high bar for the rest of us who have to do that for our children. But 42, I think, is the cutoff when you should be forced to do this. I also want to give a shout out to our friend. Oh, my mom is watching. Amma is watching. She says, hi, Amma. We're looking at your painting behind Acha right there. There's a beautiful, our home here in New York has several paintings by my mom. And there's a photograph here also of my mother and my parents at my brother's wedding in Goa. And these are the twins now looking a little older than that. 17 years later, they're looking older than that. But I want to say goodbye to my dad so we can wrap up the show. There's so many comments coming in. Thank you so much, everybody. Jonathan says, interesting and provocative show. Actually, he has watched 48 straight episodes of this show. So he is is terrific. We have a comment from...
give him an award.
I must give him an award. My 50th show is coming up. So Jonathan, I want you to come on that show and talk. And a Facebook user says, what a lovely human you are, Ambassador. Thank you. And we also get some Japanese in there. Sogoi desu, arigato gozaimasu. And Rose says the painting looks wonderful. And Lekha, my mother, says Gopika is my sister's daughter, who is my second generation. Kunyama, meaning auntie, is very proud of you, she says. So why don't
Gopika is a legend.
Legend. That's right. Yeah. That's right. And Lakshmi, Manju, Manju Natarajan says, uncle is always insightful and inspiring, runs in the family. Glad everyone is safe. So leave us with some words of wisdom, please.
Oh, I thought I had already exhausted.
Let's get some more wisdom. More wisdom.
Well, wisdom is all that India has been proud of in the past. I remember when I joined the service, nobody had anything good to say about India. Then they would say, oh, what a wise country, Buddha, etc., etc. Now people don't say that. People say, can you repair computers and so on. So it changes. But still, I think the essential India is a mix of so many religions, a mix of so many languages, thoughts, customs, manners. I don't think anybody, even an Indian, has grasped the complexity of India. And so wisdom is the one thing that India is known for. And the contribution that people have made to it is remarkable. So therefore, nobody can claim any particular wisdom, nor can I. But the experience has shown me, as I said earlier, to be optimistic, to be resourceful, to be active, and try and do what you can do for the family and the country.
And you certainly did that. before you leave, I wanted to just mention to everybody who's watching that we had this chance. Thank you, Monu, for this wonderful show with your dad, says Amma. Thank you. Amma's downstairs. Otherwise, I would have had you take the camera to her right now. But thank you, Amma. And we should do a show with you at some point down the road as well. So now I just want to tell everybody.
Now started becoming a writer.
That's great.
Started writing about our experiences.
Please follow my dad on Twitter. He's at Sreeniv, Sreeniv. I'm at Sree. He's at Sreeniv. But I wanted to tell everybody that one of the things that Neil and I and our team does is we do virtual events. We take physical events and turn them into virtual events. This show is an example of what we can do very easily. So if any of you wants your own talk show, please write to me, Sree@Sree.net, and we would love to talk to you about that. And one of the things we did was I heard that Shakespeare's 456th birthday, I heard that they are canceling the parade in Stratford-upon-Avon for the first time in 456 years. So I was so upset about that. I wrote to the team at Stratford and they agreed to do a show like this instead. And I'm going to show everybody this wonderful collection of organizations that came together in less than 70 hours. From start to finish, we found the place where he was born. That's the Sir Shakespeare Birthplace Trust. The place where he was buried, Holy Trinity Church. The place he studied, King Edward VI School. All of those representatives, Royal Shakespeare Company, all came on a show and spoke to me for an hour. 12 organizations represented. It was a life highlight, I like to say. # life highlight. It's an amazing day. And when people asked, why is this guy in New York hosting this show, I was able to point to you specifically. You grew up in a house with the same level of technology as Shakespeare, 400 years after Shakespeare, no indoor plumbing, no electricity.
We didn't have even electricity.
That's correct. And from that, you rose to become a Shakespeare scholar and an ambassador and a diplomat. A great tribute to you and to our family. The parents and the love that you had from the siblings. But I wanted to say that you took me on your first trip to Stratford-upon-Avon in 1980 on our way to New York. And I remember how emotional you were to visit Shakespeare's home, his birthplace, all of that. And then for me, 35 years later, I was able to become a consultant for the Stratford for Shakespeare's Birthplace Trust. So I wanted to show everyone the Yale Shakespeare that I have. Look how thick this is. And you've read all the Shakespeare plays, I know. And what are your favorite Shakespearean stories? This is, look at what it says. The comedies, histories, and tragedies published according to the original copies. Look at the spelling of original, 2 L's.
Yes.
Why was Shakespeare important to you? And how did a man whose native language was not English, growing up in a house with no electricity, develop a love for Shakespeare, and where did that carry you in your life?
Well, Shakespeare was part of our education all through. I read about Shakespeare in Malayalam. In fact, the first Shakespeare I ever read was the Malayalam translation of Othello done by Sardar K.M. Panikkar. K.M. Panikkar was a diplomat, a busy man, but he still sat down and translated the whole of Othello into Malayalam. And that is where I started. And then, of course, I chose English literature as part of my studies, my both bachelor's and master's. And that made it essential for me to learn Shakespeare. And then when I took the civil service examination for the Foreign Service, we were told that you had to be familiar with all the 36 plays and the sonnets. I thought this would be an impossible task, even if you read it. But surprisingly, I had a choice of 15 questions on Shakespeare. You had to choose 10, and I could answer all the 15 equally well. And that was really this is like learning the Bhagavad Gita, as it were. It's another version of that. And today I don't write or speak without quoting something from Shakespeare, without deliberately doing that. Because some people even think that that Hamlet is a book of quotations, because every word in Hamlet can be used in some context or the other. And that is the universality of Shakespeare. But I am sad to say this time that the importance of Shakespeare in the academic world in Kerala has reduced considerably, because people have started talking about outlandish language and things like that. But language is not the issue. We need to, the kind of thoughts, the kind of wisdom, the kind of experience. And that is why many people say it was not a man, it was a syndicate or something. So how could one single man know so much about the world?
And a man who never left the island of England.
Exactly. And he was in jail when he wrote King Lear, they say. Incidentally, King Lear is my favorite Shakespeare play.
When he wrote it during quarantine, and we have an episode coming up with an expert on Shakespeare, Professor Smith.
What happens in jail?
Yeah, at quarantine, what happens in that?
Mahatma Gandhi and Nehru wrote most of their books in jail.
Yeah.
So every imprisonment has a silver lining, if you could mix the metaphors.
This was your autobiography's title, Words, 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 and Neil has it on the screen. Polonius, what do you read, my lord? Hamlet says, words, 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 and this was Act 2, Scene 2. And then you had a second book, Mode Diplomacy, about the diplomacy of Prime Minister Modi. Here is a photograph of him with President Trump through a Shakespearean prism, it says. So what does that mean?
Well, it somehow fitted into the 5 acts of a Shakespearean play. That's how in fact, I wrote an article in the Hindu at the time of the 3rd year. And I just happened to call it the 3rd act. And that caught on. And many people were inspired by that. And then I started looking at Mr. Modi's career and found exactly a replica of a Shakespearean play. The first act, what happens, the presence of the person, very impressive, full of good qualities, no fault in him. And second act, you find the situation getting complicated. And the third act, he solves all problems and reaches the pinnacle. And the fourth act, all kinds of things happen. And particularly something called the Deus ex machina, God by a machine. Because a new character appears from nowhere and he messes up everything. And I'm referring to November 2016, the US elections, which changed India's foreign policy, which changed the world's perspective. And then he spent his time in the 5th act putting it all together. And his victory in the elections made it a comedy rather than a tragedy. So it is not right to say comedy, but it was a happy ending. And that is how I visualized it. And that is how I wrote it. And it's fitted very well with the kind of understanding that of Shakespearean plays. But I did talk to several Shakespeare experts, which are too few in Kerala today. There used to be many teachers whose nickname was Shakespeare, but I couldn't find even a single one today. And I was told that, no, Shakespeare is a bit antiquated here. And also Shakespearean plays, about, the Shakespearean plays used to be played by Shashi Kapoor and his wife all over India. And then every day, even today, if you go to a school, I myself acted as Desdemona in school. And that final scene where Othello strangles you. So I was really worried by my teacher who was acting as Othello and actually strangled me because he was so carried away by his emotions. So that was a funny story. And so it's kind of ingrained in my blood. And I cannot take it off. I don't need to also.
Thank you, Acha. One of the things that my executive producer, Neil Parekh, always tells us is stick to the schedule, finish on time. It's midnight here in New York. If we could have kept going between you and me, we would have just kept going and going and going. But now we'll say goodbye.
But my breakfast is getting cold also.
Okay, bye-bye, Acha. Say bye to my dad. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you.
Wow, that was great to talk to my dad. Thanks much to Neil Parekh for stepping in and helping. And this is what we do, great production always, but it takes a village to do these shows, and Neil was very, very helpful. On our team, Stefan says, you take care, Mr. Srinivasan, much love. I really appreciate that, Neil. And we should tell everyone about Stefan. It's so late that it's midnight, so I've turned Neil into Stefan. But I want to tell everyone about Stefan's show that is really worth catching. And you can find it here on the Spin It Social Hour. a discussion about photography and social media, hosted by Stefan Kaplan on my team. He's a former photo editor of the New York Times. And Susan Portnoy is his guest, freelance travel photographer. And she's amazing, and she just got nominated for a Webby Award. She's been a guest on the New York Times Read Along. She is fantastic, and I know you will enjoy that conversation. That's at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Thursday. So with that, let me thank our sponsors. We're always grateful to them. Pajama Program is a sponsor. Please go to bit.ly/pajama1, bit.ly/pajama1. For each $10 donation made to the Pajama Program, they will deliver a new pair of pajamas and a book to support a child of an essential worker. Please do this. $10 if you enjoyed this show. Please make a donation. bit.ly/pajama1. bit.ly/pajama1. This is a donated ad so that the money wouldn't be taken away from the Pajama Program. Please make a donation, bit.ly/pajama1. And we also want to thank our sponsors at Muckrack, the Muckrack Academy, mrac.co/media, mrac.co/media, introducing Muckrack's Fundamentals of Media Relations, a free, on-demand, 2-hour course and certification. Enroll today. Muckrack Academy, mrac.co.media. Globally, anyone can take it, and it's free, and you get a certificate at the end of it. How exciting, how cool is that? Please do check it out. It's from Muckrack, and if you'd like to have an ad on our show, very easy for you to do that. We have very reasonable rates, as you can see, and maybe you can make a donation of, you want to support a nonprofit or a small business or do a birthday shout out. We're going to do Mother's Day shout outs coming up for Mother's Day in the US. There's Father's Day, there's grads. You can talk to me, we'll make it work. Sree at Sree.net, SREE at SREE.net. I never wanted to do a show that goes into the new day, but it's midnight here in New York, and at 8 p.m. we will be back at 8 p.m. So in about 20 hours, we will be live again, 8 p.m. Eastern Time in New York. We'll be live with a show about foreign relations and international affairs again. We'll have Morgan Till here. Morgan is the International Affairs and Foreign Affairs editor of the PBS NewsHour. And you'll get a chance to hear him speak, and we'll ask him lots of questions. I want to thank our sponsors at Scroll, our hosts, for making the show possible. This was our India update with my father, TP Srinivasan, the ambassador, former ambassador of India. And we really didn't get to talk about his exceptionally wonderful career as a diplomat we didn't get, there were so many things we're going to talk about, we didn't, but he's an amazing man. I'm proud that I'm his son. And we want to thank Scroll.in. Scroll is one of India's largest news, analysis, and culture websites, winner of so many awards. Thank you to Scroll for partnering with us. And that's it, folks. We're going to say goodbye. We'll see you soon. Please subscribe to me on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. Sreenet is my YouTube account, and you can subscribe. I also want to show you this other way that you can get an alert every time that I'm on the air. Just point your phone here, and you'll get a WhatsApp alert. It's not a WhatsApp group with your racist relatives. It is a WhatsApp alert where you will know when I'm live, and you can always unsubscribe, no problem, no hard feelings. Hope you will sign up for this, and that way know when we're live. But you can also very easily subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please do that. Rose says thank you. Rose, what an amazing producer. Rose Horowitz at Rose Horowitz 31. Follow her. Vandana Menon, Vandana_Menon. Thank you so much, everybody. And Renee says thanks, Sree, Niv, Sree, and at Neil Parekh. Very, very cool. And we're just grateful to everyone for watching. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. I promise to do this till lockdown ends or till I get COVID-19. And we are on day 48, and we'll see how far we can go. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.